Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Karl Jacobi. Karl, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be here. Appreciate it.
The honor is mine, and the only appropriate way to begin this podcast is by thanking you for your service. Whenever we've had a veteran on this podcast, a relative veteran, I always say, and I believe it to be true whenever I meet veterans, you are a better man than I am. You did more for me, my family, my wife, my children, my parents, and all of those that will come after me than I could ever. So really, truly, thank you.
It was my pleasure. Happy, it was worth it. I was leaving it at. It was worth it.
I want to begin with that. And I always encourage our listeners to read the bio. Your bio is extensive, important, and I imagine, if not one of the top 2-3 most pivotal moments in your life, which then led to your incredible hustle personally and professionally today, was your decision to join the military. Now, when you say it was worth it, I would like to ask you a twofold question. A, tell the listeners why you joined the military. And when you finished with the military, was the reason the same? And B, when you say it was worth it, what do you mean was worth it? Can you take us to a little bit of the sacrifice, the hustle, and how it impacted you so that we can better understand what you might have been challenged with for it to be worth it?
Yeah, man, I love your approach to this question because it's a multifaceted approach, right? Let me share a story with you. Story of where I grew up in a broken home. My parents were divorced at 5 years old. Both of my parents were living in opposite homes in opposite sides of the country. I've probably been to at least 15, 20 schools throughout my youth. That's no exaggeration. So I had no role models, no real stability in my life. Now, don't get me wrong. My parents were amazing individuals, but they were programmed with the things that they believed, that were instilled in them. They didn't have a good display of marriage. They didn't have a good display of what a role model or a good mom or a good father should have been in their life, right? So growing up with that, I had no stability, and I was a GED, good enough diploma person, right? I didn't graduate high school. I went to high school. I didn't take it seriously, and I had nothing going for me, man. And so, and rewind a little bit, my dad's prior military, my grandfather's prior military. In fact, if I recall correctly, every single male in my family has been in the military, either Marines, Navy, Army. That's it, actually. Nobody's been in the Air Force, at least not as of right now, as of this recording. But I share that with you because I wanted to set the stage of how I grew up most of my life. I was a troublemaker. I had no sense of direction, no sense of purpose. I was just a troubled youth, man. And so I went back to live with my father. Coming from a situation of a physical abuse, neglect, and emotional abuse. And, I'm staying on top of a roof, working with a roofing crew in Southern California. And we're talking like, I don't know, July, summer time frame. And it occurred to me, like, is this what my life is going to look like? Right? Like, is this my life where I'm, laboring with my hands, doing some hard work? And guys, let me tell you, roofing, if you're not familiar with that industry, especially, in places like Southern California, it is brutal. So that was a pivotal moment for me. I was like, man, I've got to do something to change my life, because before then I did fast food. Like, I did jobs that really didn't supply the path I was looking for. And what that path was, I didn't know. So I'm like, you know what? My dad was in the military. Everybody else is in the military. Why not? Right? So I went to the recruiter, told him my story, told him my background. And it was one of those situations, it truly was, that, like, look, if I don't join the military, either I'm going to be a statistic or I'm going to be dead. That was just the kind of trouble I was in. Not proud of it being stretching imagination, but that was life for me. So took a couple tests, got my good enough diploma, did all the things I was supposed to do in order to be eligible. I raised my right hand. I think it was my right hand. Yeah, raised my right hand and took the oath. And so I went in the military. And if it was not for the military to give me what exactly I was looking for, structure, discipline, a brotherhood, people that I could count on to watch my six or to encourage me, to support me, that in man, if I didn't have that, yeah, again, I would be a statistic, or I'd be in jail or dead, or definitely would not be where I'm at today. I definitely would not have the success that I've had in business and family, and all the things I've achieved in life. It is because of my start in the military. Getting those disciplines, getting that structure, getting used to doing hard things that nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and to do physical training. Nobody wants to go out in the rain and run just for fun. I mean, there's no fun in run, period. But when you have to do it out in rainy weather, the adage is if it's not raining, we ain't training, essentially. It's like if it's not going to suck enough, we're not going to go outside and train because we want it to suck as hard as we possibly can. So that's why it was worth it, because I felt it postured me for success for what it was later to come, right? To give me the skills, the discipline, the structure that I needed to make sure that my life was postured for success. When it came time for me to get out, I was overseas. And at that time, in the job specialty that I had in the military, my job outlook was not great. Either I could be, somebody for hire, or I could be a cop. And sorry, I seen what cop life did for my mom, and I have mad respect for the blue line. I really do, but that was not the life I wanted. So I elected to, what's called a re-enlist, to reclass into a different job specialty, where I ended up being a Black Hawk crew chief and flying, not flying Black Hawks, but flying in them and maintaining them, and basically having an airframe that was mine to have Overwatch. And so that's really where my career, for lack of a saying it, kind of kicked off, right? And that's where my life kind of spawned into a much better flourishing life. I learned skills, and fast forward 8 years, I got out of the military. This was after we invaded Balad, Iraq in 2003, and I got out of the military and did the exact same job but as a defense contractor, making a lot more money. Essentially, I'll just kind of leave it at that. And so that's why it was worth joining the military. It was, as much as I love to say it, it's because I want to be patriotic and follow follow the bloodline. I'd be disingenuous if I told you that. I just can't tell you that. It was merely because I needed an escape, and that was my escape. And fortunately, I was able to use that escape to better me and to better the people around me.
I love, first of all, thank you for your candor and honesty. Not that I respect anything else, but I love a few things that you said there, especially as they relate to hustle. And that is that very often, I think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the reason why people do things, especially young people, the reason why we start careers, we think that the road is leading us to X. In your case, joining the military as an escape, or as a way to see what's next. And then you end up getting the skills, and I'm going to get to getting up at 4 a.m. or running for fun. I'm not there yet. But the actual skills that you then developed, or the reason that you then felt that you gained from the military afterward, in addition to the sense of purpose and all of that, and probably a little bit of patriotism in there. But as you said, you did it, so you're more patriotic than I am. It's just incredible to me that it wasn't just the escape, but it became the stepping stone, the springboard for the next part of your career, which then was the springboard for the next part of your career.
Correct.
And it's not like you're lifelong military. So, everyone could say, I think that a lot of people can translate that to any other field. Very often people think that, they start as a roofer and then they learn that they really want to be an electrician because they interact with those people.
Mm-hmm.
And then that takes them there, when really they were just a roofer to make some money because they needed to be able to afford to pay their bills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or they learned about solar panels. There's so many things that if people just, I feel, especially young people, approach with professionalism, dedication, grit, hustle, especially early on, waking up at 4 a.m, et cetera, in the military, but are open-minded to the ebbs and flows of getting to the ultimate career, the ultimate goal, then I would probably say that more often than not, it is not the straight, direct path that people follow.
No, it was definitely not the straightforward path.
So what was the least likely thing when you look back at the waving path? What was the most surprising thing that impacted you positively?
Looking back, if I had to go back to my 18-year-old self, actually I was 19 at the time, and staying on top of the roof where the decision was made, I need to do something different. And you're telling this young man, hey man, you stick it out and you do the unrequired and the required, and you stick it out. You're going to be working on airframes that are in excess of $10 million, $15 million, and you're going to have skills that will carry you for the rest of your life. You're going to gain friendships that are going to be with you for the rest of your life. You're going to gain the sense of camaraderie. You're just going to get so much. Like, I just can't verbalize, the brotherhood, and not just the brothers, right? I mean, there's women, that I grew close with, I grew a very good friendship with, but having that, if you told me that 19 years old, I tell you, past the blunt, and I would have at that age, because unfortunately, I fell into that trap.
I would correct you. I would say not, unfortunately, because that's part of the path that makes you New York.
That is correct. I appreciate you catching me
And
on
I
that.
think that's, and no, I'm not correcting you, obviously, but I think that's part of this conversation, is that a lot of times people just don't realize the steps. And again, I'm not saying that people should, I'm not advocating that parents should raise their children to do things that at the time were
Yeah.
illegal or dangerous or whatever. What I'm saying is, looking back at it,
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. I agree.
if you weren't the guy who said pass the blunt, you would have been the guy who joined the military the way you did. You would have been the guy who took the experience the way you did, and so on and so on and so on. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that and obviously it's very easy to say that looking back now at your career and your ongoing success, right? There are plenty of people that doesn't happen to. But
Agree.
I want to tap into another thing you said. You talk about the brotherhood,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that partnership, collaboration, mentorship
Mm.
is so challenged and lost in our generation.
Oh, 100%.
And teamwork. And very often on this podcast, we talk about screens and spending time and things like
Mm.
that. And at a younger age, earlier on in your career, I think you probably learned the value of partnership, collaboration, dependence, not only being a person that people could depend on, but depending on other people for your survival, literally.
Oh, yes.
That it probably helps you now dealing with coaching clients, dealing with
Mm-hmm.
business partners, dealing with challenging situations, dealing with every level of growth. And again, probably not what you were thinking at the time when
Agree.
it was going on.
Yeah, wholeheartedly.
So how did that impact you, and how have you seen that today? How do you transform that today? That brotherhood, those skills that you learned, that dependence on others of being dependable.
Mm.
How does that help you today in what you're doing?
That's a great question. Let me unpack that for a second, because that's one thing that was instilled early on in my military journey. And they do this through like mass, for example, mass punishment. If one person messes up, and guess what? The whole group pays for whatever it is that they had done, because all it takes is one person to screw up an exercise, one misstep, and everybody's dead. Right? Like, that's the level of seriousness that we had to take it. Right? And I want to paint that picture for you, because that was ingrained ever since day one, right? If somebody overslept or somebody missed one corner on making their bed, i.e., paying attention to details, right? If they missed one little wrinkle or whatever is on their bed, guess what? Everybody's bed was turned upside down. Everybody's footlocker was just emptied and thrashed. Even if somebody just missed one minor thing, it didn't matter. Pay attention to detail and watch out for your brother. If you see your brother messed up, or your sister, she messed up, correct them and get them on a straight path. Otherwise, everybody's going to pay for it, either metaphorically or literally, right? So that was one thing that was ingrained in me from day one. And honestly, it served me well throughout my entire life, because coming into the military, I was a spoiled brat. I was looking out for Mr. Karl Jacobi. I was looking out for me, not the we, right? And that's one thing I love to approach this anything with is, do I need to approach this situation, this opportunity, as the me mentality, or is it the we mentality? So having business partners, having coaching clients, I'm not concerned about myself. Like, this isn't about me. This is about the opportunity to create an impact. This is the opportunity to create the ripple effect, because that person's probably going to create, an impact on somebody else's life, right? And so having that sense of accountability of like, this isn't about Karl. Like, me talking on this podcast, this isn't about me. Maybe this conversation is going to spark another 19-year-old to be like, oh, wow, that sounds just like who I was, or the life I am in. Maybe there is hope for me. You're right. And so at the end of the day, that's really want to inspire, leveraging that there's hope for everybody. And you hit the nail on the head. It's like, we don't have enough of this we mentality. It's all about me, right? It's all about this guy. What can this guy get out of it? And oftentimes, man, let me tell you something. I've learned this over and over and over. If you just truly care about the other person, guys, you're going to get screwed. Don't get me wrong. I've been screwed more times than I can count. I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because of trust. And at the end of the day, I can look back in the mirror and be like, you know what? I didn't let even anything behind. But people are going to screw it. But the thing is, if you trust the right people and you just go wholeheartedly into it with true heart, full intentions to serve that person, the universe is going to reward you 10 times fold. That is the mantra that I have learned to serve with is this, man, if you care about that person more than you care about yourself, the universe is going to reward you tenfold. And that's the mentality that, coming from the military. And that's just how I operate, whether it's business partners, my coaching clients, or anybody that I'm surrounded by.
You said something that's very powerful to me, and that is that even when life has thrown you challenges, your bio state talks about, hundreds of thousands of dollars of a business. I don't know if I should call it thievery, but really being messed over. And yet when I hear you talk about getting back up, it's with as much passion as you talk about someone pushing you down. How, why? Take us to that. What was it like in that moment? What helped you push forward? And when you look back at it today, are you proud of how you got through that?
Man, that was probably one of the toughest times in my life, when there was an individual who not only did I consider a business partner, but somebody who I considered a brother. Like somebody, like we should have this 3 a.m. list, right? Somebody we could call it 3 o'clock in the morning. And I say this because it was actually utilized. Like I actually was in a very serious car accident several months before we made this discovery at like 4:30 in the morning. So I literally had to use him on my 3 a.m. list. It was literally a call. But to have that person on my 3 a.m. list to do what he had done in misappropriation of funds of that amount, it hurt, man. Not so much because of financial. Yes, that hurt. Because we had to really recover financially, but from a trust perspective, from somebody like, man, how could you do this to me? Like, brother, I treated you like my brother. Like I share things that I don't share with people. I was wrong with you. I was open with you, vulnerable. And so, that hurt. And it took me some time to process. And at the end of the day, man, my relationship with God is what brought me through this. Like there is a reason I had to just trust and rely on God. And everybody has conflicting belief. Everybody has their own beliefs, and I respect that. But at the end of the day, my belief is I am a child of God, and when I had to really rely on Him, that's what brought me through. To your point that you said earlier, there is a reason why I was staying on top of that roof with the past that I've had, right? There is a reason why I have this past, because to be able to inspire other people who are maybe not as strong. Like I don't view myself as a strong person, but there's probably somebody listening to this is probably experiencing some massive adversity. They've had some massive challenges. They need this inspiration of hope, right? That's what I have to listen to. Secondly, probably more importantly, is my family counts on me. Like at the end of the day, I have to show up for my family. It does not matter that I get screwed. It does not matter how I feel. It doesn't matter. None of this matters. I still have to show up for my family as a husband, as a father, as a provider, as a protector. And I cannot let anything interfere with that. So I have no choice. I have no choice because nobody else is going to save me. There is nobody on this planet that's going to come in and rescue Karl and give him what he needs financially and everything else. That's Karl's responsibility. And that's what I had to ultimately realize. And fortunately, because of the people I have in my inner corner, and the rest of the members in my 3 a.m. list, and God, I was able to champion through that. Was it hard? Oh, hell yes. It was probably one of the hardest moments of my life. And it may not be the hardest moments of my life, when I take my final breaths. But it was, at this point, it was the hardest point in my life. And looking back, I'm extremely proud of how I handled it. Could I have handled it better? Yes. I'm not going to say I, probably lost my crap a few times and cried and screamed and said some things that, I probably shouldn't have said, but I persevered. I pushed through. I got back up, and I'm ready to fight.
I love that. The name of your company is Alpha Evolution Coaching.
Correct.
I would like to, when I saw it, I was like immediately shocked at this question. What part of the alpha in 2025 needs the most involvement? You interact with the alphas, you interact with people all the time, all different shapes, sizes, varieties, emotions, ages, energies, past, presents, and futures.
Mm-hmm.
What if you had to think about the most common thread in our society today? What is the most common evolution that every alpha needs?
Ooh,
Or needs to work on?
confidence.
Why? What does that mean? What do you mean? Everyone appears confident. I can do anything. I
Mm,
can start a $1 billion crypto company from my basement. What do you
you're
mean?
absolutely right. Yeah.
What do you mean by that? So when you say confidence, what do you mean by that?
What I mean by confidence is merely just fulfilling on the word, the promises that you made to yourself, right? Oftentimes, surface level, we seem to be this amazing, successful person, either on social media, on paper, bank accounts, and so forth. But there's typically, any client I work with, there is a very serious situation where they're lacking. Like they're putting this facade of, hey, look at me. I just bought this brand new car. I just bought this brand new house. I got this amazing career. I got this amazing business. But they don't want to tell you is they've got a crappy relationship with their spouse. Their kids are disowned them because they spent so much time in their career, or they self-sabotage themselves because they got into this vicious cycle of self-sabotaging their success because of mistakes they made in their career, mistakes they've made either in their career, their business, relationships. So at the surface, it may seems like they did some amazing things, but beneath that, you're looking at the duck feet like moving a million miles an hour because they have no sense of fulfillment, right? They're not going to bed knowing, today was an amazing day. I fulfill my purpose. I feel good. People love me. I'm confident because the promises I made to myself, I fulfilled them. We're this simple as going to the gym and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to start getting into movement every day. I'm not saying you got to go to the gym for 2 or 3 hours a day. All I'm saying is, if you're committed to getting into better shape, follow through on that commitment. And that's oftentimes what happens with clients is they make these promises to themselves, right? And they don't do it. They talk themselves out of it because they're so worried about what other people think. They're so worried about how it's going to happen. Like they're trying to create this path before they even try to make the first step. It's like they're disqualifying themselves from opportunities before they even get disqualified by other people, right? And so that's what I'm talking about is confidence.
I love that. I think that everybody can define what they are confident in.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more confident leading the pack. Some people are more confident being the person who visualizes the solution. Some people, to take a sports metaphor, every single team, every basketball team needs 5 players on the court. And I think that where people often lose that confidence is when the center thinks that they should be the point guard. And then they kind of don't feel, they can't get to that full level of confidence, inspired hustle, or 100% dedication because it's off balance. So I love that. And I think that if people took the lessons that you've shared and dedicated themselves, followed the path that their journey takes them on, even if it is unconventional or windy or twisty, and found their own confidence and deepened their own hustle, the world would be a better place. So I really appreciate you coming on, you sharing your story, you sharing your journey, and you inspiring me for one. So I'm glad we had this conversation today.
Me too.
We have a closing tradition on this podcast where we ask our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational or inspirational quote and what it means to them and their hustle. When I mentioned this to you before, you're pumped. So I'm excited for this one and excited for how you close us out. And with that, I'll say again, Mr. Jacobi, thank you so much for your service. And thank you for being here today and inspiring all of us to keep hustling.
Yeah, man, it was an honor to be here and I appreciate it. Honestly, man, the first thing that jumped in my mind is by one of my own coaches who's been responsible for my own transformation and really kind of sums everything up that we do as leaders. And we all lead, right? We either lead teams, churches, businesses, workplaces. Worst case scenario, you lead yourself, right? So I'm going to leave you with this parting quote by Ben Newman. You can only lead to the level of discipline in which you live. I'll leave you with that.
I love that. Karl Jacobi, thank you so much for being here. Thank you again. This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good and always keep hustling.
All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.